Hi, and welcome to the Transform Your Wellness podcast, a space where we explore the body, mind, and spirit connection and discover powerful ways to reclaim your health, awaken your potential, and live with more purpose, vitality, and joy. I'm your host, Karin Hagberg, also known as the Awake Wellness Warrioress, and I'm so glad you are here. Today, I'm excited to introduce my guest, Scott Lancaster, also known as the Cut the Crap Coach. Scott works with women aged 30 and above, helping them get to the heart of their challenges in their lives so they can sort them out quickly and effectively. Through his no nonsense yet compassionate approach, he empowers women to strengthen their boundaries, increase their self worth, boost their confidence, and expand their awareness. Scott's work is deeply rooted in his own personal and spiritual journey over 9 years, drawing on wisdom from countless courses, counselors, and spiritual mentors. He has developed his own unique brand of coaching uh, that blends lived experience with practical strategies. His mission is clear: to help women stop carrying what doesn't serve them, reclaim their power, and step forward with clarity and strength. So, I came across Scott over social media, over Facebook, and of course had a look at what he was doing and thought, oh boy, we have got something here that we've got a lot in common with. And I always connect in and follow my intuition. So I was guided to reach out to Scott. And here we are. I don't know too much about Scott, in fact, but I'm sure I'm going to find out lots here. So I'm really excited to have you here, Scott. And today's episode is called Cut the Crap, Building Boundaries and Boldness. So I really want to welcome you to the show. I'm really glad to have you here, Scott.
Thanks so much, Karen. It's great to be here. I'm based in Wellington, New Zealand. You're across, the proverbial ditch, so it's great that we can connect even from a small way away. So, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So, did you grow up in New Zealand?
yes, I did. Yep, I grew up about 2 hours north of Wellington, where I'm currently living. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Well, your accent should give it away, shouldn't it?
that's true. Yes, that's true. I don't get confused with Australians very often, but I have been told a number of times that they think I am Australian. So when I travel in Australia, they're always like, "Oh, you're just an Australian." I'm like, "No, no, it's like the Canadian US
Yeah,
accent
yeah,
convert." Yeah.
yeah. So tell me a little bit about, I'm interested in just if we go back right from the start when you were a
Mhm.
little boy, tell me a little bit about your upbringing and yeah, how that was.
Yeah, look, I was raised primarily by a single mother, and my mother was present, but not mentally present. So she was physically present, but not mentally or emotionally present. I didn't see that as a major concern or issue at the time. I never had to rebel. I never had to be, wild or whatever because my mother was just, free and easy in regards to almost like, like a Woodstock participant, you know what I mean?
Okay.
And I guess for want of a better word, I never really knew boundaries, if that makes sense, because there was no physical boundaries. So I guess I'd grown up and lived in a very tumultuous farming family. Um, and it was a very high conflict. And I never really understood the difference when I was with other people, if that makes sense. So when they would be, for example, passive aggressive, or they would just hide things under the rug, I'm like, this is really strange because all I've known is, people just literally go off or blow up or blow up the world if they need to. So I guess coming to where and then kind of going through the journey and coming to where I am now, I look back and it's a whole 180 compared to who I was. And so, whilst I had a great childhood, we bring all that baggage and that stuff into, adolescence and then early, 20s and 30s and in this case, early 40s, where really, I kind of didn't realize that I had been holding so much anger, resentment, um, inability to communicate well because I've always been a communicator and I've always been able to say what I feel. So I've never been stopped by that. I don't hold, I hold, my heart on my sleeve. So I've never worried about just saying what's up, what's right. And so it's an interesting fact because sounds weird, but I honestly thought the world lived like that too. The people that I came across, they live like that too. And as we all both know, that's not the case
Mm.
because of their whatever different, reasons that people do what they do, right?
Mm.
So I guess that got me to a place of really going, who am I? What am I about? Why am I here? Why am I going through this now spiritual journey 9 years ago? And what does that look like for me? Because I was thrown into this big, deep, dark hole where I felt very alone, isolated, and then trying to make my way around that.
Mm.
And I like we've spoken, a little while ago, a couple of days ago, where I'd said I have a very low pain, mental, physical pain threshold. So I was just like anything that came around or sounded like they were, gypsies, as an example, I would probably I'd clench onto that and I'd be like, oh, cool. So tell me how you can help me, sort of thing.
Mm.
And so to fast forward to where I am now, there's been a whole lot of lived experience. There's been a whole lot of times, changes, understanding me. They say that people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And that's totally correct. It's just I've had some amazing people who've literally walked in the door, gone through the turnstile, walked out, but have left something for me. And I think we've all got to remember that's what people do. That's what we do to people as well. We've got to remember that as well. So hopefully that answers your question about kind of who I am, where I came from, and kind of where I am.
Yeah.
I've not really said where I am right now, but I think in this episode, I think we'll get to that. Yeah.
So, was there a particular moment where, a big event where which kind of got you to wake up to get you to think, oh, I got to change. There's something here I got to address. Um, was there a particular moment where you realized that when you were reaching out for help, with counselors and coaches, as you said, you've seen many people. What was the start of that?
Yeah, I think there was a family event where um, an identity was taken away, who I identified with, and that was our family farm. It got sold. We sold it. The three, my mother, her siblings, sold it when my grandfather died, and I think that identity really just snowballed because I'd spent so much of my life there, and they it was just a great place for me. And so when that happened, I didn't realize that I was carrying all this emotional baggage and crap
Mm.
for a long period of time. And it probably took me so many more years past that kind of event to go, oh, uh, what happened? Like almost like losing something or
Yeah.
someone, right? And so that probably was the start of it. I didn't realize that until that had happened, that because of that thing being sold, that
Yeah.
had just taken a whole big chunk of my life, compartmentalized it and put it away, and then gone, okay, all right, we'll carry on with your life now. And you're like, hold on, what's happened? So that
Mm.
kind of started me off on that spiritual journey. But at the time, I had no clue what it was about.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And did you reach out for help then? Um, what was the, tell me a little bit about that. Yeah, because I understand that you've seen quite a few different people, and that's how you kind of come up with your own approach to helping women too. So
100%.
tell me about the journey there. I'm really interested in how that went and what you got out of it. So if you want to give a little bit of a rundown
Yeah.
on all the different people you were seeing and the
Uh,
gems that you took away or what you didn't get from it, and yeah.
yeah. I would say that I've always attracted people or things into my life. Like the law of attraction has always worked for me. So when I started going down that kind of rabbit hole, um, what I'll fast forward to kind of the crux of it, which was feeling like you're eating a lot of food and still not feeling full. And that's what it felt like. That was the kind of the byproduct. Okay, that was the well, rather that was the end output. But at the time, I was seeing, I'd see a counselor for 3 or 4 sessions, and then would almost hit this glass wall, the glass ceiling rather, of who what I was doing, and I'm like, this doesn't feel right, and what I didn't realize is that my intuition was trying to guide me at that time. So it was trying to move me and say, yep, okay, you've got this from X. Now it's time to find Y or A or B or C or D. And that's exactly what was happening. People would come into my life like, um, sorry, I'd met a lady in Cairns. We were just talking. My mother lives in Cairns now in Australia. And I'd gone up there to see her and I'd met this lady and we were just talking at a deli, for example. And then she was like, you should see my friend. She's a eighth generation Brazilian witch and she does tarot reading. And I'm like, sure, let's do it. Message her the next day. I get in with her. She was pregnant with her third child. I go into this house, this enclave, and she was telling me all this stuff about myself. I've always loved that. I've always been attracted to it. I kind of have very good intuition to know if someone's, pulling the wool or someone's just not quite right or a charlatan or something. And so she felt safe because when I was in the middle of that, I wanted to feel safe. I didn't
Yeah.
know that, but I wanted to feel safe. So I would attract, kind of energy healers and I guess back in those days, light workers or what we call them light workers now, psychics, oh my Lord, Reiki healers. I just met a whole bunch of people. Honestly, it was like, and I'm going to do this and this, and then this and this and this and this. But I think, Karen, what I still had was, like I said before, was I still had this feeling of being, of not being full, of not
Mm.
being satisfied, of like going, there's something still, I just know there's something more, but it's just not quite where it's at right now. So yeah, that's kind of where I lived in that I lived in that moment for heck, probably 4 or 5 years. Absolutely, it was hell. To be honest with you, it was absolute hell. Yeah.
Because you had to really take a good look at yourself.
Yep. And the universe keeps, serving up those lessons until you decide you want to listen or you want to do something about it, or someone comes into your life when you want to learn. So the people were coming into my life, and then they were doing a 180, going, "Oh my God, like this is that mental thing that I was talking about before." They were doing a 180 and going, "Okay, right, I'm out. See ya." And or I was going, "This doesn't feel right. Okay, thank you, bye." So it was like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and then maybe one to the side. Yeah.
Mm, mm, mm.
Mm.
And when did you feel that you had like the big shift where you felt like now I'm starting to feel like I'm finding myself again. I'm feeling more whole. Or maybe you're not there yet.
Oh, no, I'm definitely there. Yeah, yeah. No, I had got myself to a stage in my journey. I'd gone to the doctor at one point, the early start, right? The early point. I think we kind of used doctors and things as a kind of a bit of a litmus test to say, right, what do I need? And they
Mm,
prescribed fluoxetine,
mm,
antidepressant. And so I'd taken this and then I'd forgotten to take it. So I had a big drop and, in my mood changes. And anyway, I think I got to the point where I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to accept this. Can I accept this? Yes, I can. Do I want to accept it? Yeah, I am. Great. So what do I need to do? It's like kind of going, you know what? I'm going to take this as its need for helping. Great.
mm,
And I did that. Right. what else is left.
Mm,
So it took me a long time it took me 5 or 6 years probably to get to that state where I could accept that
mm,
and then consistently take it and then say, you know what, all I need is that kind of, that median of mental aptitude and just say, right, this is where it's going to be. So I
mm,
don't need large spikes of up or down anymore because that's what it was like. It was high highs and low lows. And so I just went, right, that's it. I'm taking this for what it is. And then I kind of got into a bit of a routine with a good counselor, who was a trauma counselor actually, for families whose children were going through trauma and more towards death, usually death, they were dying or the kids
mm,
were dying, unfortunately. So she kind of opened up my eyes, and I think she was very soft and very matter of a fact, where, when you finally go to a lot of people, a lot of people, a lot of people, and then click, it just
mm, mm,
right. And so with her help, and then with kind of the fluoxetine, and then I had a friend who was just, for what I wanted to say, massaging, like literally massaging all the crap out. So we would do 5, 6 phone calls a day, easy, if not more. And
wow,
she'd be like, right, what's going on? And boom, boom, boom. And we'd keep that going and going every single day. It was like that. But she probably in some respects, she saved my life, I suspect, because and I think she helped fast track that to where I am now, and really understanding what that support looks like from people, what that support looks like from friends, and also when to say, you know what, this is as far as I can go with you on this journey.
mm,
So, yeah.
mm,
And in turn, I've done that with friends who have gone on that journey, and I'm like, okay, I've got to stop this journey now because this is becoming quicksand for me. I need you to go and see X or Y, or or you should see them, or
mm,
if you want to, whatever. So yeah, kind of a very, sometimes it felt like a very scattergun approach, and it literally was. It was just throwing the crap at the wall, finding something that stuck, finding something that I could, at least ride out for a couple of months, and
mm,
then saying, does this work for me? 90% of the time, no, it didn't. 10% of the time, yeah, it probably did. And
mm,
then from that 10%, I would kind of boil it down to 1 or 2% where I could, use it for a long period of time, like that fluoxetine or the counselling with that trauma lady. So yeah,
wow. I always say, Scott, there's not one thing or one approach to that fits everyone.
100%.
We've got to kind of address it in many different ways, and I mean, trauma is a big topic in itself, but it is worth exploring different ways to tackle it, I think, like you've done. And it sounds like you came to the point of a level of acceptance too, to a certain extent, once you realize some things. And I was actually talking about with a friend just the other day that, we are so conditioned to um, kind of stay away from the pain too, aren't we?
Oh yeah.
That there's a lot of shame, and even since we were little kids, we've been conditioned we shouldn't feel a certain way. And I'm all for um, bringing out that allowance to it's okay to feel, because I believe that we can't really move forward unless we allow ourselves to feel. And however that is done on a physical level, also somatically, because obviously we store a lot, in the body.
Mm.
Sitting down, let alone just talking through, it's probably not just the only approach that's going to help. So there's many different ways, isn't it? But I, when I came across your profile, obviously saw your posts on Facebook, and they resonated with me because boundaries is something that I believe so many people, both men and women, are very poor at because
Very,
there's a
yeah.
lot of fear behind it.
Hmm.
Um, and that's tied to then people pleasing, and those things are, yeah, not very healthy for us at all.
No.
And and then I read your bio and it said cut the crap. And then I went, yeah, I need to talk to this guy because I very much, I can be quite like that. Just cut the crap and get to it, you know.
Yeah.
Let's just deal with it and not work around it too much. And sometimes, yeah, so I want to hear about where did that come from and how do you help, particularly, you help women particularly, as I understand. And so let's first talk about where did the cut the crap approach come from? And then why are you drawn towards women, particularly helping women?
Yeah, so cut the crap, I think, has always been kind of my motto, this underlying thing that I've always had. Like, there's a small talk or there's the doing, sorry, not doing, but there's a small talk and there's that kind of in between. And I'm just like, I really can't be bothered with that, literally with that crap. I want to know what's really going on. So I'm not the one. I've never been a great sports person. I don't watch rugby. It's one of our national pastimes. I don't watch it. I don't care for it. I don't even know what's going on with them. So, but what I would do is I'd find myself, even as a young age and a young kid, I'd find myself being um, just told things by different people. Like these people would come and just tell me their secrets. They didn't know me. And so I'm like, great. But what about this? And they'll go, oh, that's interesting. Okay, thanks. Bye. And you never see them again. So I think I've always had that kind of that quality to cut through the rubbish, cut through it and go, but what's really going on here? And they would go, oh, this. And it's always something, obviously, that's being masked by what they think is the real issue, but it's actually this, right?
Mm,
So that's when I was kind of going back and forth and saying, well, what do I actually do? Because a boundaries coach, whip D. Everybody can be a boundaries coach. And then I'm just like, well, what's it that's kind of part of you and part of your personality? And that's always been part of my personality, which is cutting to the crap, getting to the stuff straight off the bat, like within a few minutes, identifying that and then saying, right, how do we move that forward? How do we make this work? Um, and the reason that I work with females is that they are a lot more likely to have lower boundaries, lower self worth, lower self confidence. And so I had identified that from just kind of where I'd come from um, in my spiritual journey. And the interesting thing was when I was going through my spiritual journey, I only ever saw females. So if it was a guy peddling whatever, I was like, no, I don't want to see him. I don't want to know about that. And that was that really feminine energy that I was lacking. And that was definitely tied to my mother. 100%. Totally get that. So I had to then bring in my own masculine energy because I'd kind of started bringing all this feminine energy in and going, right, this is me. So, right, so who do I want to show up then? Show up um, as this coach for these females, and females are also a lot more likely more likely to do this type of work. Not saying men don't, of course they do, but it's just not as prevalent as it is for females to do it, as we both know. So that's why I was like very drawn to that, and I was very drawn to helping them not only increase their boundaries, bring in that masculine energy that they needed to help with the self confidence, the self awareness, and the boundaries. So we started with the boundaries, and that has been a game changer for a lot of people, as you probably know from the work that you do with females as well. And so once we opened up that, once we started seeing that, and 9 times out of 10, they would be with a partner who had very high boundaries. And of course, their partner has high boundaries, they have low boundaries, they have kids that have high boundaries, and they're going, oh my God, I'm the doormat here. What's going on? And they know it. They know that they know it. And I'm like, cool, let's see how we can kind of, move this back to a good equilibrium for both parties. Yeah.
That's really interesting. You're saying I'm just listening to like the relationship that often one is up here, and I'm just reflecting on myself, and it's really interesting, and it's such important work to do if one is in any kind of relationship. I mean, first of all, our relationship with ourselves, which is the most important, and then once we enter into spending time with someone else where the boundaries then go, whoo. But yeah, so talking about boundaries, how do you think someone, here's one person that's got strong boundaries, one woman, and then you got another one here that hasn't got those strong boundaries. Where do you think the foundation is built when it comes to the boundaries?
Yeah, look, 9 times out of 10, it's built from the current circumstance that they're living in, and then the current and then of course, from their previous life, childhood, whatever. No, what I've seen is they've been around strong feminine women, feminine, a strong woman, and those or a strong male figure, and they've gone great. That's great. That's who that they are. I don't want to be like that. And so when and so I've always found myself around strong females, no matter who they are, and I've always been attracted to them, mentally. And I've gone, wow. So when I started talking to a couple of these females, and then we were getting back to where did this come from for you? What does this look like? And tell me about your current life, because you've brought in that person or attracted that mate that's also got those strong boundaries, because you don't have strong boundaries, and that's how what you do. If two people with low boundaries get together, it won't last very long, right? It, it it's a very codependent relationship, as you know, right? So it won't last very long. But but we've got to remember that when two people come together, one with strong boundaries and one that's kind of keeps keeping that strong boundaries quite high, and one that's kind of always been here, and there's no way of inching up because they're like, well, that's kind of what I do, and I'm the person who runs around after the kids, and I'm the person who does all the meals, and blah 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 blah, and then you're going, okay, stop. Stop. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to actually look at, almost take an outside bird's eye view of yourself and see the work that you're doing, see the amount of physical work that you're actually doing. And when they can do that, and then they start listing it down, and they go, oh God, this is where I've got to. I am run ragged. I am tired, and I'm sick of living in this way, but I'm scared to change because I don't know how to get up to that level.
Mm,
And that's the bit that I love, this bit right here, when you can get them there. Because 99.9% of the time, this person is not going anywhere. They're not moving down to accommodate you. How or why would they?
yeah.
But this person wants to come up.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is really interesting. Me as a female and as a woman, I observe a lot of other females, and I've always found myself a little bit different because, I mean, for me, I think boundaries come from obviously you've watched your parents and your mother particularly being the nurturer, or what kind of boundaries that person has, or you look at it and decide I'm not going to be like that because that has implications. Um, but the I don't know. I keep thinking, whoa, now when I'm thinking about it, I think a part of like discipline in life, learning to, because, I was a elite sports person, so I had to have a lot of discipline, and there
Mm.
comes boundaries linked with that, doesn't it? Because you've committed to yourself, you've made a decision that, you know, um, I'm important. Whatever I do, I've committed to doing, and being super committed in that, I now later in life, I look at obviously being a mother of two adult kids and two grandkids. Um, I look at how they live their lives, and they've obviously watched me how I do things, and they have got their level of boundaries too, and it's really interesting to watch. I think it's about it comes to a it's about saying I'm important and I love myself and
Mhm.
I need to do this for me. So that's on a deep level, that's where it comes from. Um, where the boundaries come from ultimately. It's like I'm important and here's like I need to look after myself because if I don't look after myself, I won't be the best version of how I give, or if I don't do it, I give with from a place of resentment, if that makes sense.
Mhm. 100%.
And yeah, because it festers underneath you. If you keep giving and giving and giving, eventually you get to a point, hey, where you go, I've had it. I can't do
100%.
this anymore. You are not doing enough, blah, 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 and it just comes out. I'm going off on
No,
a bit
no,
of a
no, no. That's
tangent
great.
here, but I was going to say I've watched other women and I do not like the behavior myself of a woman that just gives to others, but there's some hidden expectations. They nearly become I don't know, like some kind of there's hidden expectations. Um, but they're not just damaging themselves, they're also damaging the relationship.
Mm.
And yeah, it's like I just personally don't understand why someone or a woman wouldn't really realize that they are important. They can only step into the best version of themselves once they established that they are important too. So, and
100%.
I guess you see that a lot in women, they're low boundaries that a lot of people have. Um, yes.
Yeah, and I think that's like if you took a couple of females, one say who is a single mum, right, with a couple of kids, and then you said what are her boundaries like? They're probably pretty damn high because they've got a couple of kids that they're raising that and they're the reliant, right? These kids are reliant on them, so they have to be strong for their kids. Whether they're strong for themselves might not be projected that particular way. So when I'm seeing that dynamic, that's a completely different dynamic to say a single female. I'm just using this as an example. A single female who's career driven and has also got high boundaries because of her position that she's in. But when she comes home, she wants a masculine energy to take the weight off her shoulders.
Mm.
Just to go, cool, I'm cooking, or I've done some cleaning, or whatever that looks like, right? Even if it's just something pretty, pretty basic. So when you start looking at them completely different, and then you kind of those subsets within inside the feminine energy, without even bringing in males or whatever that relationship looks like, and then you start, kind of bringing that all back and going, what does that look like? And I find that really interesting because I was talking to a friend of mine who's she's got three kids and they just the last one's now 18, I think, something like that. And she was saying she's an overthinker. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. What do you overthink? Because I'm a chronic underthinker, and that's how I was raised. My mother's an underthinker,
That's
but
a
I
man,
really
Scott.
sorry.
I was going to say that's a man. A man can only think about one thing. You should hear my head and my voice right now.
100%, 100%. And look, and I was just saying, that's interesting because why you like that? Oh, because I had to be when I separated from the children's father, I took on the kids. I wanted to be their stability. I wanted to be their all. I wanted to make sure because their father moved to another city. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. So tell me who looks after you?
Mm.
Me? Okay. What are your, do you see a counselor every now and then? what's your self-work? Tell me. Nothing. Do you get a massage? Do you tell me what's nothing? And it's really interesting. I really love where those conversations go because I can almost, as soon as someone says their dynamics of their home life, I can almost pinpoint it to what goes on in there, like a snapshot, like I was sitting outside their house and I could say, I bet you this is happening. And 99% of the time, it probably is.
Yeah,
Mm,
it's so interesting. I mean, the dynamic, I mean, everything gets brought out, when you enter a relationship with another person too, because the dynamic just changes and you learn so much about yourself. You learn so much about your boundaries. And I'm listening to you now, and of course, my head goes and it's
yeah,
it's
100%.
really it's very, very interesting. I mean, I've been single for a very long time and had to bring up, two kids myself and all that. And it is it is very, very easy to fall in as a woman that you just do the job as your mother and then you forget about doing those things, that's self-nurturing, as you say, go and give back. Who's actually there for you? And
100%.
when you said that, Scott, I've had many people ask me that, because when you're in the role of not just being a parent, but you're also in the role of being a coach, being a healer. So consistently, I am in that role of being the nurturer and the giver. And I've had to learn that I cannot sustain that role unless I do have got strategies and things that I do to give back to me. And that has been a real learning curve and also be able to be open to receiving, as a because females are the givers, but they are
100%.
often very poor at receiving.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what I've tried to do with some of my clients is say there's a reason that in a plane event
Mm,
that the oxygen mask comes down and you put yours on first and then help people second. It's not you help everyone else and then, oh, whoops, we've hit the ground.
yeah.
That's not how the metaphor in life should go. So
Mm.
I've said put yourself first and then make everything else around it. Otherwise, you'll be spent. You'll have nothing left for yourself at the end of it.
Absolutely. And that's where that kind of, what do we call it, if it's people pleasing or whatever. I think
100%.
that's the worst form of like teaching your kids. Oh, I've seen that a lot in other friends' mothers and so on. And I guess it's quite interesting because I reflect on my own mother. She was really not doing anything much for herself. I'm completely different.
Mm,
And being in the role now, I often reflect too of because I've got the privilege of having two little grandkids, a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, which, a lot of people in my role, they would give those kids anything
anything they want. Yeah.
anything they want. And do you know, it's really interesting because I'm a lot harder with the boundaries that their mother and,
Mm,
their parents. And I'm very hard on that, making sure that they know that no, I need to be doing this. This is important for me because I know that I'm teaching them that they are important too, because it's
100%.
one thing to say one thing and it's another thing to act in a way, isn't it, Scott?
Yeah, 100%. And I think, what we do is we set them up to fail. So we're not helping them to be resilient in life. We're just giving them what they need so that we can kind of get the monkey off our back for whatever reason. And I just see this so much. And so take the pain. If you have to have the pain, take the pain because the pain in the long run is going to be worse.
Mm, mm, mm. So what are some of the if you were to give the listeners, the women particularly, or men as well, but
Mhm.
maybe more the women, some, I guess, some real good tips or strategies here that they can walk away with so they become, I guess, so they feel more open to have those boundaries. What sort of tips can you give us?
Yeah, definitely. The first one that I say is look at the behavior, not the person. So take away the person, okay? And we're just talking about their behavior because their behavior dictates who they are, what they do, right? So, yeah, you love your husband or your partner or whatever, but you don't like the way they do X. That's a behavioral thing. That's not that they're narcissistic. They might be. I'm not saying they can't be, but just look at the behavior thing. The second part that I try to get them to do is just start to look at all the touch points in your life that you feel everyone that you're giving to everyone, whether it's your kids, whether it's your husband, whether it's your work, family's a big one. Like I'm talking about family not inside the home, but a family as well, because that's a huge drain. And then kind of decide what part you want to play. So are they, and I call them vampires because they suck the life out of you, for example, or are they helping in whatever way that looks like? So just kind of find those, I call them those mental box or mental baskets that you can kind of put them in and say, I need you in this box, and that's how I need it. That's how I need you to be, because when you get out of that box like Jack, I know I'm not going to like that, but that can take a little bit of a while. I use the analogy of imagine looking at, and I think we might have spoken about it, but imagine looking at two paddocks, okay, two farming paddocks. One has got 7 or 8 wire fences, the strainer posts are all straight, the battens are in there and they're all straight, the wires look tight. There's a gate that's correctly installed. It can open or shut or whatever, or maybe there's a padlock on it. Then look at another one next door, and the strainer posts are leaning, and the battens are broken. There's some rusty wire, and some of it's not very tight, and the gate's held on with twine, top and bottom, and sides even as a thing, and revert that as your boundaries. So where do you see yourself and which type of boundaries? And 9 times out of 10, you'll go, that paddock there with that thing. And it's like, great, because guess what we want to do? We want to get you to this other paddock where you decide who you let in.
Yeah.
That's all I need you to do. And that's where I'm kind of getting them towards, is going, we don't care. We don't care that the race that they walk onto is muddy. We don't care about that. We just care when people interact or you interact with someone else,
Yeah.
you know that you're strong enough to do that. Okay.
Mm.
And so that's another tip I give, is to use for one of, it's more of a farming term, a paddock analogy. And I guess I also ask to them to look at their self-love and what that's creating,
Mm.
because that if they're with someone that has strong boundaries, then their self-love can be a lot lower. And that's just unfortunately some correlation there, whether it's good or bad, right, wrong, it's just where it is. So I said, we're going to work on both the boundaries and we're going to work on your self-love. So
Mm.
just have a bit of an idea about what you think it's at or where it's at, right? So just be, and that's what we use to cut the crap, is just we get to it straight away and we go, right, where are you at right now, Karin? And you go, out of 10 for self-love, and you might go, I'm at a 9. Great. What's going to take us to get to 10? I don't give anything to 10. Great. We're going to work on that.
Mm.
Or where are you at now? I'm at a 5. Why are you at a 5? And really start asking those hard questions, so that the next time when you're by yourself, you can almost hear the questions in your head from me going, but why are you at that? Why are you thinking like that?
Mm.
Where's that coming from?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, it is so interesting, and this is something that's come up so much, or it's been talked about a lot lately, isn't it? And I wonder why that is. Right now, I just maybe it's just me. It's just, what you kind of in your what I'm doing, but it comes up a lot. Boundary,
100%.
a
Oh yeah.
big. Um, what about you know, for men? What I mean, they are a little bit different to women when it comes to boundaries, aren't they?
Completely different. Yeah. Yeah.
Why do you
And
think they
so
are? Why do you think they are? I think you said before they tend to be a little bit stronger in their boundaries.
yep, probably a masculine thing. A masculine thing, but also the masculine hierarchy or the way they view themselves, especially if they've had a stronger or strong parent, you know, parenthood where the father has ruled the roost. So they go, great, I'm going to take that and I'm going to put that into my life or my family or whatever. So they're at the head of the table and everyone else kind of slots in, and I've seen that. I see that a little bit. I see that actually quite a lot, actually, if I'm being really honest. I see that quite a lot. And then the female, and then I guess what you're trying to say is, and we talked about both having low boundaries, but equally, if you've got an alpha female and an alpha male, that creates a lot of clashing as well, where both parties, they will die on the hill.
Mm,
Literally they will die on that hill. They don't care. And so I can see that kind of coming as a kind of an ancestral thing. I still see it, which is really weird, but it's great in some circumstance. So men, I think, pull themselves to one side and kind of almost, this is going to sound, it's not a generic thing, but can be that they kind of pull themselves to one side from the family and they go, guess what?
mm,
This is how we're going to do it, whether it's finances, whether it's job, whether it's whatever. And it blows my mind, absolutely blows my mind. Yeah,
mm. Maybe, yeah. I mean, men um, are more, if they're in the masculine, they're more leaders and they're there to look after and provide. So they have to kind of take that step. The women are definitely more, they worry more about what other people think and how that's
100%.
going to turn out because it might affect this person or, I
Yep,
might be seen as this. So it is fascinating. And particularly as you bring it into a relationship, which I mean, my belief is that the most important relationship obviously is that we have with ourselves and working on these things before we enter into a non-dependent relationship, obviously very, very important. Um, and then it comes down to a little bit of communication, doesn't it also, Scott? I mean, how we communicate and the commitment we have to that. You know,
100%. And men are primarily, another generic, but men are primarily um, not great communicators. Let's use that as and especially when it comes to say love languages as an example, right? And so the communication, it just seems to be like this. And I'm like, so
mm,
when you have a conversation, what happens? And I'm always interested in how people kind of react or
mm,
act with inside, but also react from the information that you're either asking them for or telling them or whatever, because it not only highlights where they're at in their emotional intelligence, but
mm,
also in their journey.
mm,
Because that journey, you can't make them do a journey, right? As you know, you can
mm,
lead the horse to water. Perhaps you can put some salt around their mouth and they might drink, right? So woohoo. But that's not going to last for very long. So I say you can only work on yourself. You can only be responsible for the stuff that you say,
mm,
not the stuff. Oh,
mm,
sorry, not how that lands. And that's really important. That
mm,
because they go, oh well, I said this and he just lost the plot, and I'm like, okay, great.
mm,
What did you say? Boom, boom, boom.
mm,
And so, how did you get into this framework? It's almost like you turned up and you said, I want this. And he's like, what? Where did this come from? Because he's not on a journey. He's not on any journey. You've been building up for a long time and you've got yourself up here. And then you're going, hey, by the way, I need you to be this. And they're like, what?
mm,
I'm not like that. I'm
mm,
like this. and this is how I'm going to be. And if you don't like it, and
Mm.
they're like, but I got myself there. Why can't you almost drop down a bit to meet me? And I say to them, they will never drop. Somebody with high boundaries will not drop down to meet you. There's no way.
Mm. That's interesting. That's
Mm,
definitely interesting. And it is true. I think about that too from my own personal experience, being in the different positions where me having the high boundaries and in another relationship it's been reversed, which is really, really fascinating how it can also alter depending on you know, the individual. Absolutely.
yeah, and that'll normally come from, like, for example, the role that we play, right? So in that role, for example, you might have high boundaries, around yourself and your friends and peers, and yet in your family life, you might have a very dominating mother or father. And so you play another role,
Mm.
which is not because, because you're trying to avoid high conflict, for example, or
Absolutely.
butting heads.
Yeah.
And so therefore you play another role, yet when you walk away, you know that you're doing yourself an injustice,
Mm.
essentially.
That's really interesting you're saying because I've seen that play out a lot. And behind that, I find a lot of that is the fear, that
Mm-hmm.
comes into it. But that we can have, different boundaries in different situations, eh? That is fascinating.
Huge, hugely, hugely. And I think you've also got to remember that sometimes just because you've got high boundaries doesn't mean that you can't fall on your sword sometimes. That's not about dropping your boundaries. That's saying, you know what, I'm wrong. I
Yeah.
did that. It wasn't right.
Mm, mm,
You
mm.
know. So I think boundaries is a lovely um, catchphrase, if I'm being really honest. And I think boundaries have also kind of got a little bit confused with that word that we mentioned that starts with N before, narcissism, or even control. And it was very interesting because I heard someone interview Gordon Ramsay, and they said, you come off as being really arrogant. And he said, that's not arrogance, it's confidence.
Yeah,
So, I said, it's two different sides to the same coin, essentially. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Interesting, Scott. So obviously, this is your passion, the boundary bit. And you obviously find that if someone works on the boundaries, their life can shift it to the better in so many ways. Would you say that's the case?
Yes, yes. And I also say keep readjusting to you understand. One of my main clients who we've been working with, who actually got me started, who helped me on this journey, I went away, and she had her husband had literally booked the whole thing, and it was a one-way trip, and they were going to spend about 7 or 8 months overseas, sorry, 7 or 8 weeks overseas, and we did a couple of sessions while she was away, and I just said to her, how's it going with, and she had this problem with her husband for a number of months, and leading up to the going away, and I said, right, what we want to do is get you to a point where you have a conversation with him about this when you're away. The pressure's off, the stress is off from daily life and stuff. And I said, but remember, you are living in a utopia when you're on holiday, because when you come back, you're back into real life again. So I said, I want to make sure that that is just a stepping stone for you to go bang and start again. And she managed to have some really hard conversations. She managed to have some really interesting conversations that I definitely didn't think I would see her do and take and really go, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go home now. And that was really interesting because I went, oh, okay, that's great. I loved it. Like for me, it was gold, absolute gold.
Yeah.
For her, it was a huge step. For her husband, it was like, uh, who am I with? I'm not. Hold on, where's this come from?
Yeah.
Because they've always been able to, for want of a better word, make the decisions, control, and just say, this is what we're doing. And a couple of times there towards the end, she said, no, we're not going to this other island. I want to stay here. And he went,
Yeah.
oh, okay, sure. So love the journey. So thank you. Yeah,
Oh, it's amazing, isn't it? I mean, we can keep talking forever, Scott, about this.
100%.
I feel that maybe we need to elaborate and do another episode and
Sounds great.
delve deep into another little topic, maybe the female and the male energies. And
Hugely. Love
I
that.
think that could be really, really interesting, particularly me being female, being able to share from my perspective, and you being male and being able to share from your perspective. I think that would be absolutely a pleasure being able to do that. So if you're open to that, maybe we can
100%. Yep.
set a
I'm
time
definitely
for
keen on
that.
that.
But this is it for today.
Thank you.
Because I think we have you've shared so many good things. I just want to ask you if there's anything else, something little that you want to say to the listeners before we finish off today. Is there anything else you'd like to, a message or something that you'd like to share?
I think just the last part would be don't give up
Mm,
and keep going for what you want and what you believe is right, within inside your journey, because at some point something will click or someone will turn up. So yeah, just don't give up.
yeah. So thank you so much,
Thank
Scott,
you.
for the conversation today, and for all the listeners out there. All the information about Scott will be in the description, and you can connect in with himself or myself if you wish. And we look forward to, you know, having more conversations and sharing
Pleasure.
more good things with all the listeners out there. So thanks, Scott, and
Thank you.
thanks to everyone who tuned in.
Thanks very much, Karin.